Welcome to Music She Missed, the podcast where I attempt to get my best friend caught up with some of the most popular songs and artists that impact our lives. I'm Allison.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I missed all the music.
You sure did.
But you love to teach me.
I do. So, Rachel, got another week ahead of season 3. We're going through all different... We're just covering like a wide swath of popular music. You enjoying yourself?
I am. This has been a different season compared to the past ones.
I agree.
Because I really think I'm really taking in season 1 and 2, and if it really is changing how I'm experiencing season 3.
It's true, because so many of the artists have influenced each other and are drawing from each other, and the more you listen, the more you're able to see where those things come from.
Exactly. And then also just realizing that I don't know a lot about music. I'll be like sending you text message. Have I heard about this person or this person or that person? And I'm like, wow, I can't believe we're this far in season 3, but we have so much more to go because I want to learn more.
Yeah, we've covered like 25 people. So hundreds more to go. So my tangentially related question for you this week to introduce this artist.
Okay.
As of this recording, we are approaching Halloween. Audience, we have no idea when you might be listening to this, but at least as of right now, Halloween's in like 2 days. So I'd like to know from you, Rachel, what is your favorite Halloween tradition or Halloween-related item?
Oh, I would say just dressing up and going around house to house and telling people to put candy in my bag.
So everything about Halloween.
Yeah, just trick-or-treating and just
trick-or-treating
and having fun as a family. Like I always remember we didn't do trick-or-treating. Oh, I'm going to go with my friend Stacy. Oh, I'm going to go with my friend Danielle. It was more together as a family, and it was just a lot of fun. These past few years, my husband and I kind of coordinated.
Yes.
There was one year that was super fun, that it was super easy, honestly. We were The Price is Right.
Yes.
And he was $1 more and I was $1 less. That was cute.
Yeah,
and then
little Price is Right boards.
Yeah. And then sometimes we do all coordinating ones, but most of the time we don't. This year is really cute because I got a new haircut. I am going to be Snow White because it's
that's
nice and
for
cute.
you.
I know, it is perfect. My daughter's going to be Jasmine, and so she's going to be another princess.
Okay.
And then my husband, I really wanted him to be one of the, the male figures in Disney, but he's going to be an emoji face, so I don't know.
You really dropped the theme there.
Yes, he dropped the ball there, but that's okay. He's still going to go out with a family. I'm happy.
Okay. So my favorite thing about Halloween is pumpkins.
Yes, I could see that.
Which is related heavily
pumpkins
to the artist of this week.
Is it Smashing Pumpkins?
Yes. Oh my God. You know who they are?
That's about it. I have no idea if they're like rap or rock and roll or if they're grunge or if they're acapella. I have no idea.
Well, let's do a little fake reveal just because I can't live without the big reveal drum roll, and then I'll just
why don't you do this? As you drum roll, why don't you tell me the genre? Because I have no idea what the genre is. I just know that they're Smashing Pumpkins because there's a tradition where my husband grew up where they would take pumpkins and smash them down the hill.
Yeah.
And that's all I know about that. And my husband mentioned that. And he's like, yeah, it's like that band. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what that means.
Ah, your husband ruined it for me.
What do you mean? That's all I know.
That it's a band.
I know it's the name, and I don't know what the genre is, and they're a band. That's it.
Okay, well, let's...
Ready?
Do the big reveal.
Here we go.
All right. Smashing Pumpkins are alternative rock.
Oh, okay, so does that mean they're like Ben Fold? Was Ben Fold like...
No, they're not like Ben Folds.
Oh. Are they like... They're not like Motown, but they're
nope.
like... I guess... Do I know any songs by them?
Well, let me throw out some titles at you, and we'll find out.
Okay.
They have a song called Bullet with Butterfly Wings.
Pass.
Okay. 1979.
Pass.
Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Pass. Why are you laughing at me?
I'm not laughing at you. I just think that's an amusing title. Zero.
Pass.
Yeah, none of these. These are all going to be big.
I'm serious. The only thing I know is the title of a band called Smashing Pumpkins. And now I know alternative rock. And that's
well, then
it.
I shouldn't even bother asking you anything else, should I?
No, what else is there to ask?
I don't know. Have you ever heard of Billy Corgan?
No.
Yeah,
I know who Billy Madison is.
Definitely different.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we should just go ahead and rate your current knowledge.
I would say
of the
0.5.
Smashing Pumpkins. You know that they exist. 0.5 sounds...
Well, I don't know are they all alive?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know. Because you kind of told me about that Kerbain guy.
Cobain.
Oh, Cobain.
Yeah.
Kerbain?
Cobain. Kert Cobain.
Kurt Cobain. He's dead, right?
He is.
See, there's people like Michael Jackson is dead.
Yeah.
I don't know if Smashing Pumpkin people, because they could be that smashed.
Okay. Well, so we're just going with you don't know anything about these guys.
Nope.
So your homework is to listen to the hours-long Smashing Pumpkins playlist that I've created for you.
Okie dokie.
Every day for a week.
Okie dokie.
And then when that week's up, we'll come back together and we'll talk about it, see what you think.
It'll be a moment for you all as listeners, but it'll be a week for me.
That's right. And got a special announcement.
Really?
I won't be alone.
Really?
We are bringing in a special guest host.
Who?
You might remember him from season 2, Radiohead.
Oh, yeah.
Father Photius is coming back.
He's very cool. I like him.
He is cool, and he thinks this band is the best band ever. This is his
Really?
number one. So
I feel bad that I don't know anything about them.
No, it's great because it means you're coming to it with like a clean slate, and you can just say, "Teach me, Father. Teach me what you know."
Okie dokie. Let's do it.
All right, Rachel. See you in a week. Audience will be back with you in just a moment. Welcome back. Rachel, you spent the last week listening to the Smashing Pumpkins, but I would like to, before we jump in, introduce our special guest, Father Photius. Welcome, Father.
Thanks, Allison. It's great to be here again. It's always a joy.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
We're very glad. Thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, sure.
So, Rachel, before we jump into the history, just general impressions. How was your week with Billy Corgan and company?
I think the word of the week is surprising. In many ways. So yeah,
And you're going to save those surprises as surprises for later in the show.
As they come through. They may not be surprises for everyone else because everyone else knows about the Smashing Pumpkins, but they're surprising for me.
Okay. Well, why don't we start by talking a little bit about their history? And I know you have some questions.
Yeah, I do. So I think the drummer really stood out to me. He's super talented. And so I was kind of curious of that formation of the band and how it started and began.
Yeah, Father, who's in the band?
Well, the band consisted, at least in the classical lineup, of Billy Corgan on vocals and guitar, James Ehaw on guitar, Darcy Retzky on bass, and Jimmy Chamberlain on drums. They started out in 1988. It was actually just 3 of them. Jimmy Chamberlain was not, the drummer, was not part of the lineup.
Really?
It was the 3 of them playing with a drum machine, and they were playing new wave music. They weren't playing rock.
Which we haven't really talked about.
No.
Yeah.
So-
I don't know what new wave.
And
You want to give like a one-sentence new wave explanation?
new wave, one sentence new wave explanation. This is the bold new pop music of the late 70s and early 80s. It's represented by bands like Joy Division, The Cars, Blondie.
Rachel's just like,
It's okay. It's totally okay.
but the sound is poppy a little bit.
It's a poppy sound. It can be driven by synthesizers, but not always necessarily. But
that's what I think of.
It does provide, I would say, a more radio friendly sound than something like punk.
Yeah. So they started out as that. What city were they in?
Yeah.
Chicago, Illinois.
Really?
Chicago, Illinois.
I was thinking they were more West Coast.
Because you're associating it with grunge.
Yeah, a little bit of that, but also just maybe some of the topics that they would sing about.
Oh, yeah.
I just...
The darkness.
Yeah, no.
It's not exclusive to the West Coast.
No, but some of the bands that we've listened to and heard, I've noticed that the darkness, the sadness, and I'm thinking, maybe it rains a lot there. Maybe they're from Seattle.
So, good guess, but... So what are, so you talked about the New Wave. What are some of the bands, so you mentioned the New Wave bands, but what are some of their other musical influences?
Well, so certainly they did have New Wave influences like Depeche Mode and The Cure and whatnot. But as far as the rock music was concerned, they were rooted heavily in Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
More up to their time, a band like My Bloody Valentine, and so that accounts largely for sort of the basis of their rock sound.
But I definitely heard the rock part. But there's just... Is there really such a thing as like smooth rock? But there's some smoothness to it. Like, but it's just very hard in some like songs, like one of my least favorite one. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to push the skip button. I want to push the skip button. But there's some beauty in the instrumental stuff. And so I kind of am curious about the instrument stuff.
Do you have any influences from classical or jazz?
Jimmy Chamberlain, before joining the Smashing Pumpkins, was a jazz drummer.
Really?
And first and foremost, he would consider himself a jazz drummer. So his approach to the drums, while it very much merged with Billy Corgan's vision for the musical sound, it definitely added some nuance to it.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
And you mentioned specifically that you noticed the drummer, so that's
I
interesting.
did.
Oh yeah.
So back in high school, a bunch of my friends were in this band, and one of my closest friends was Lori. And hi, Lori, for hearing this, yay! But she was the drummer, and like I remember one of the songs, I can't remember which songs. There was just like this drummer riff, and then she started, and I kind of made me think back to her because I think she played that riff or something like that.
So you're saying that the band that your friends was in was like covering Smashing Pumpkins?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, she wasn't in Smashing Pumpkins.
No, I am aware of that. I just was wondering if like they were writing their own music and you were hearing Smashing Pumpkins like influences. Or
Some like riffs from the drummer.
Oh, okay, interesting. So let's talk about.
Wait, are they called riffs, or is that just for guitars?
Fills would be the more appropriate term, but nobody's judging.
Are you sure?
I'm not judging.
That wouldn't be the thing that people would be judging you on in this show.
I'm the priest. I'm not allowed to judge
Okay, thanks.
Anymore.
This is my favorite guest.
The rest of the church is totally allowed to judge.
Yes, that's true.
So let's talk about some of their earlier songs. We put I Am One from Gish and then several songs from Siamese Dream. Do you want to talk about their first hits? And this is the 90s, by the way.
In 1991, their first single, I Am One, hits the radio waves. And it's interesting because Gish, their debut album, which is definitely a rock album, Billy Corgan had talked about how he had always wanted to play rock music. And he was afraid to do so, particularly when he started the Smashing Pumpkins, because in the late 80s it was not incredibly popular. And even into...
what was popular then?
New Wave was still going pretty strong.
Oh, okay.
As far as, artists who wanted to feel like they had integrity, felt like they needed to sound like The Cure or something like that.
Well, we haven't done The Cure.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Okay, all right, we won't worry about that.
I'm thinking of like Grey's Anatomy when I hear
The radio waves were also dominated by, as far as rock music was concerned, the hair bands.
Which we also really haven't.
Okay. Well, it was super radio friendly, but just super annoying. But Gish was really a bold move. Especially for a debut album for a band, because there really wasn't much else that sounded like it when it came out. And it wound up being largely overlooked because a month later, after Gish was released, Nirvana released Nevermind.
Yeah.
And entirely eclipsed all of the impact of Gish. And so while it's a good album and a powerful album, of their whole body of work, it's probably the most overlooked.
Yeah.
And okay.
Therefore, just put one song. Let's move on to Siamese Dream.
There we go. Moving on to Siamese Dream, after the advent of Nirvana. Okay, Siamese Dream comes about in 1993. The band works with Butch Vig, the legendary producer. This particular album proved to be a trying time for the band because Billy Corgan has sort of a reputation of being a control freak. Of wanting everything.
I can see that, but I can't.
Everything being just so. And so when they went to record the album, the only two people in the studio were him and Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer.
But remember, there's other people in
the
band.
So what?
James Ehal, the other guitarist, Darcy Retzky, did not record anything on the album with them.
Billy actually recorded all the instruments,
all their parts
himself, and that's a bad sign for a band when you have
Yes.
one person doing the jobs of other people. It happened with the Beatles towards the end of their breakup.
Oh,
and
yes.
I'm sure lots of other bands
Oh,
where
yes.
it's like, well, I can play these instruments, so I'll just record it because then it'll be the way that I want.
Well, yeah. And it really almost broke up the band. Billy Corgan talks about how his friendship with James Ehal, the guitarist, ended at that time. They continued to work together, but they were no longer friends.
For some reference, the songs that are on this album that you listen to are Disarm, Mayonnaise, Today, and Cherub Rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I liked the Cherub Rock. That was like my number one.
Oh, yeah.
I liked the sound of that one. But the other ones, I was just, I heard them a lot throughout the week, but I don't know. I didn't here or there, but it was only Cherub Rock that I would pull out from that album.
I particularly loved Today because that little guitar riff is one that
yes.
we would all, when I was in playing guitar in high school and stuff, you're like, and you would just like pick it out.
It sticks with you.
It's, very powerful song, brings me back. It's got really strong memories attached to it.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a good time to mention, out of Cherub Rock, and I think some of that one specific album, it's really hard to understand him.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Like, why? Is he having marbles in his mouth? What is he doing?
I just have to say right here, I do not like his voice.
That's
it is
okay.
irritating to me. I would love this band a lot more if his voice wasn't like that.
That is okay. I personally love Billy Corgan's voice.
Why?
Why?
It's an entire package. The music is. There's no other voice which sounds like him, even remotely. When you hear the Smashing Pumpkins playing, you know exactly who it is.
Yeah.
People have made complaints about the vocals of other artists like Bob Dylan.
But you still know it's Bob Dylan.
But you know it's Bob Dylan, and in my less than humble opinion, he's always awesome. You know, people have complained about Tom Waits, about Leonard Cohen. You know, again, awesome songwriters, awesome performers, and you always know it's them. So
Rachel doesn't know it's them yet.
Oh, okay.
No.
We'll get to
But
it.
this is a good example where if you heard a Smashing Pumpkins song that you hadn't heard before, you still might go, "Oh, what is that nasally,
Yes.
obnoxious
Yeah,
sound? That sounds like Billy Corgan."
Yeah. Nasally is definitely the way to characterize his voice.
He just sounds sick, maybe, every song. Like, he needs to go see an ENT.
Well,
It's his style.
it's his distinct style. You know, it's him. You know, I think it would be difficult to ask Billy Corgan to stop sounding like Billy Corgan. I think it would be difficult to ask, you know, Robert Smith of The Cure to stop sounding like Robert Smith.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah.
And perhaps the uniqueness is one of the things that makes them stand out. One of the myriad of things that makes them stand
Yes.
out from other bands of the 90s.
Even if one does not particularly care for his voice, but generally appreciates the music, I think it is part of the overall package.
Right.
Gotcha,
And that's
gotcha.
fair. I would agree with that. So let's move forward. Let's talk about their masterpiece, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. This is a double album with what?
And how?
Yeah, with 5 number 1 hits on
Wow.
Oh, yes.
it. These are the songs that, to me, scream Smashing Pumpkins and are the main songs of like my youth.
Yes.
Hearing. Though at least for me, I remember I have like a very distinct memory of being in middle school in gym class doing like laps.
Yeah.
And walking with a girlfriend and her saying like, "The world is a vampire," and then like singing it, and I was just like, "What? I don't know. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
It took me a while to get caught up.
Yeah.
It's taken me definitely a longer while.
Rachel, a little longer.
As long as you get there. Okay?
Right, we're getting
it is
there.
about the journey.
It is.
So, Father, what can you tell us about this album?
Well, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness marks the pinnacle of the Smashing Pumpkins' commercial success. And mind you, it was a bold move for them. Okay, anytime a band wants to do a double album, it tends to make record labels nervous.
Why?
Well, because there's
Twice as expensive.
Yeah, it is, and there's less that they can control. There's all this material, and the background behind making the album was interesting because Billy Corgan did allow James E. Haw and Darcy Retzky back into the studio to record the album with him. So it really is all 4 of them on the tracks, you know. But there were almost 100 songs recorded, and those 28 made the cut.
28 out of 100. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
Have they ever released?
Yes, there is there's the super deluxe edition of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. It's wicked expensive. It's well over $100, but it has if
$1 a song.
if not all of those tracks, it does have most of them.
Wow.
And so it's pretty interesting. This album really catapulted them into mainstream success.
Okay.
Because so many of the songs were indeed radio friendly, and yet there were also sort of more epic tracks which couldn't be played on the radio, but people who bought the album were like, "Oh gosh, you got to hear this."
Yeah.
So Through the Eyes of Ruby. Things like that. At least for all the people I knew who ever purchased the album, they liked the whole thing.
Huh. I really like the song Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. I really like the piano and the strings.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're saying Billy Corgan was the guitarist.
Yes.
His friend was the guitarist. The chick was the bass.
Yes.
And then there's the drummist. Drummist? Drummer. Sorry.
Drummerist.
Gosh.
Drumission.
I suck. Okay. So who's the piano and who's strings?
Billy Corgan.
Really?
On strings?
No. Those are hired musicians, but the string part was indeed written and arranged by Billy Corgan.
Huh.
What you're hearing on that track is a piano, but also another instrument called a mellotron. The mellotron is the musical precursor to the sampler, where the sampler takes an actual recorded sound and loops it.
Yeah.
The mellotron has a keyboard on it, and attached to each key is an actual reel of tape with recorded sound on it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And so
I think a lot of DJs have that.
No. The mellotron has been several times outmoded and is just super expensive.
Okay. Just for studio.
Yeah. You can't really bring a mellotron on tour because it's big and clunky and it's easy to break. And so yeah, but he had string sounds put onto the mellotron and was able to do that. So that accounts for some of the unusual kind of string sounds, but then you hear actual acoustical string sounds accompanied with that. So
that song is not one of the big hits.
It's the intro.
Yeah, and I put it on the album to give you a different perspective.
Yeah, and I actually am really glad that you put it on the playlist. I actually put it on one of my faves list.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
It is a very lovely song, and I think for me that's one of the reasons why I was surprised by this week of Smashing Pumpkins. I was just not expecting for myself to enjoy it, but when you put the playlist songs of knowing that maybe this would interest me or give me a different perspective, it really did, and it made me more accepting to them.
Is there something else, Father, that you want to say about this album as a whole, or
Well,
any of the hits on the album that Rachel heard?
Well, gee whiz, I think there's too much to say about any one of the hits. Perhaps I can touch on 1979.
I enjoy that song quite a bit.
Yes, yeah, that's a favorite for many people. Lyrically, it highlights something that Billy Corgan does relatively often. You notice in listening to the lyrics, it doesn't seem like there's an actual literal meaning. And that's because there's not. The words and the phrases that have been selected and put together give more of an impression of emotional states, of places where one has been, and so they bring up, at least for the person who hears it, those own aspects of their experience, like, yeah, I can kind of relate to that, even though there's not, like a literal meaning. A crass term I would use for it is, impressionism. It creates more of an impression, than telling a story or, singing a line, that sort of thing. It evokes an emotional response.
Helps when you can't understand the lyrics, too.
Which you can understand the lyrics much better on Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. And I don't know particularly if that's owing to the production style of Alan Moulder and Flood, who headed up the production team on that one, or what, but it certainly was the case.
So we still have a lot more to cover.
Sure.
But I think that we should, unless Rachel, do you have any questions? I think we should kind of talk about the end. I mean, we have a couple more albums, and then...
So, you're saying the Smashing Pumpkins are no longer in existence?
That is not true.
That's why I wanted to kind of move forward, because it's interesting.
It's a tricky question.
Okay.
So, yeah.
After you, Father.
Well, so much happened, from the period of the Infinite Sadness tour, in which they were promoting Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. So much happened from that to the breakup of the band in the year 2000.
Right. In a way, the 90s ended.
Well. No. It really, I really believe so. What happened? They had a live keyboardist traveling with them, Jonathan Melvoin. He's the brother of Wendy Melvoin, who worked with Prince in the Revolution. She played guitar for Prince.
Rachel hasn't learned about Prince yet.
It's okay.
He's alive. No, he's dead.
Yeah.
Recently passed. Very sadly. On the tour, the touring keyboardist Jonathan Melvoin died of a heroin overdose.
On tour.
And Jimmy Chamberlain, the drummer, was also using heroin, and Jonathan had died when both of them were using together. And so that was sort of a catastrophe within the band. Billy Corgan told Jimmy Chamberlain that he was fired. Don't come back. That's it. You're over. And so the remainder of the tour was conducted with a drummer by the name of Matt Walker, who later went on to work with Filter and other bands. He actually worked with Billy Corgan when he did the score for the Ransom soundtrack, the Mel Gibson movie that came out in like 1997 or something.
So the band breaks up, but Billy Corgan keeps making music.
Well, yeah. Well, the band, yeah, the band kind of hobbles along because they make another album after Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness.
Right.
They make Adore, but they make it without Jimmy Chamberlain, and the sound of the band changes drastically.
The album Adore had Perfect and For Martha. Those were the songs on your playlist.
Oh.
Yeah.
A distinctly different sound, not nearly as commercially successful as Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, to say the very least. But it marked, at least in my opinion, a far more introspective Billy Corgan.
Yeah, that album was written after the death of Billy Corgan's mother,
Martha,
whose name is Martha.
Oh.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And after his divorce. So at the time, he's going through two great losses. In his life. I remember a few years ago, my wife and I were listening to the album in our house, and she loves it, I guess, as much as I do, because for me, it's actually my favorite Smashing Pumpkins album. Interestingly enough, people say, "What? You're a Pumpkins fan, and that's your favorite one?" I'm like, "Yeah, it really is." My wife was saying about it. It just, the whole thing carries with it a profound sense of mourning, not whining and licking your wounds and, like, oh, woe is me, life is terrible, that typical sort of, adolescent crying, but real mourning.
Yeah.
Because
there's purpose for his...
Yeah. Really trying to come to grips with how to move on after having lost, such a large part of yourself, how to grapple with that. The entire album deals with that. And for me, I guess that's one of the reasons why I relate to it so intensely, because, I can think of my own losses and how profound those were, and how, the point of writing songs about grief, at least in my opinion, if they're to have any lasting value, is not to whine about it and not to try to get over the pain. Rather, you're keeping the pain. You're just learning a new way to live with it.
Creating something new out of it.
Creating something new out of profound loss. Moving forward with that.
So We're getting into some deep stuff here on musicshemissed.
Yes.
Our audience is like, oh man. So, just let's go forward. We have one more album on the playlist.
Yes.
Machina.
Machina, the Machines of God.
Which, Rachel, I don't think you liked quite as much because you had that with the everlasting gaze.
I didn't like.
So
it took everything inside me not to skip this one and call you up and say,
I hate
Allison,
you also, yeah.
What is this?
Well, I would just like to say for the record that song was a request of Father Photius to put on the playlist. It was not originally on the playlist.
It wasn't. That was my fault, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the band kind of shifts and changes, different people coming in and out, but Billy Corgan, in a lot of ways, just is the Smashing Pumpkins.
He is the constant.
Right.
When Machina is recorded, Jimmy Chamberlain has come back to the band. The truth be told, when Billy Corgan talks about him leaving the band, Jimmy Chamberlain was the person that Billy Corgan always felt closest to, and so asking him to leave what was really kind of traumatic.
Yeah.
Getting him to come back, Billy Corgan, gets all excited and thinks, okay, this is great. We're gonna go forward and we're gonna create some new music. And in the meantime, James Iha and especially Darcy Retzky are really getting burned out. Darcy Retzky records all of the bass parts for Machina, and she begins the tour with them, the Sacred and Profane tour, and then in the middle of one of the shows, she takes off her bass, slams it down, and walks off the stage and never comes back.
Oh my.
Yeah.
She just smashed it.
Yeah. She was just, that's it, I'm done. She quit, and the three of them are still out on stage playing. It's kind of a Spinal Tap moment.
Have you seen that yet, Rachel? Oh
gosh. We need to show her this.
I think I might have.
You wouldn't forget.
It's like one of those cult following ones, and there's a couple things that.
There's the part where the tower, the air control tower transmission is coming through on Nigel's wireless guitar, and he's trying to fix it, and he's just frustrated because they're playing at a stupid Air Force base.
Oh, yeah.
He takes his guitar off, and he just throws it down in frustration and storms off the stage. It really was almost exactly like that.
Except not quite as funny. So they broke up.
Yeah, they did. In the year 2000, they played 2 shows at the Metro, one of the first venues where they became beloved to Chicago. They wrapped it up with Melissa Oftermar playing bass. She was the new bassist, filling in for Darcy. The band ends in the year 2000. Billy Corgan releases one solo album in the year 2004, The Future Embrace, which is enjoyable, I think, probably to super hardcore Smashing Pumpkins fans, but
wasn't to me.
But no. A lot of people really did not care for it. And I understand why. It's just it doesn't have the same overall appeal as the Smashing Pumpkins. In the year 2007, Billy Corgan decided he wanted to bring back the Smashing Pumpkins. He took out a full page ad in Chicago Times, I think, and said Pumpkins are coming back. But he only talked to Jimmy Chamberlain to start it back, and he said, well, the door was open for James Iha and Darcy, but he never contacted them. So other musicians were, brought in to fill their roles, and so this reconstituted Smashing Pumpkins has kind of continued up to this day. Only Jimmy Chamberlain is no longer with him, so it's just Billy Corgan and three other hired hands. And
that's not the Smashing Pumpkins.
For so many people, even the ones who acknowledge that Billy Corgan is the creative control of the band, a lot of people would concede that that indeed really is not the Smashing Pumpkins.
Not in my mind. And I think Rachel, you have a question about the band.
Yeah. So where did he get this name, or they got this name?
Well, again, that's a Billy Corgan thing.
He is the Smashing Pumpkins.
He is the Smashing Pumpkins. In his youth, he always had this idea that God is definitely there, but he doesn't necessarily care, and in fact he plays mean tricks on us a lot of the time. And so he said the name was based on that, the idea of Smashing Pumpkins. This is what God does with us.
Like on Halloween.
Just one mean trick right after the other.
To explain some of his lyrics.
It does. You see a lot of maltheism in the early Smashing Pumpkins work. Maltheism being the idea that there is a God, a supreme being, but that he or she is in fact malevolent. And it, delights in torturing the human race. So
on that uplifting note, why don't we talk about, Rachel, your favorites and least favorites? Which one do you want to start with, the good or the bad?
Let's talk about the bad. And I think I talked a little bit already with the Everlasting Gaze and Zero. The sound of the heavy metal.
That's one of my favorites, man. I love that song.
Yes, me too.
Wait, you don't like it, Father?
I love it.
Oh. You're saying me too to me.
Yeah. No, I love Zero.
But you don't like it, Rachel. Just
the heavy metal, it made me no.
Heavy metal is musically my first love, so of course it resonates with me.
I just remember being a teenager and thinking, this is dark and cool.
It is dark and cool. You're a guy, you put on your eyeliner,
bubbles.
Yeah, so Zero's not the song for you.
Yeah.
No. I did want to talk a little bit about stuff that I did like.
Great.
I love the piano. I think that was gorgeous. I love the lyrics of Landslide.
Landslide is a cover, we should
point
out.
Yeah. That's actually a Fleetwood Mac song. Stevie Nicks wrote the lyrics to that one.
We'll get to Fleetwood Mac eventually.
We'll get to Fleetwood Mac,
Did Smashing Pumpkins make it popular?
In the 90s?
In the 90s, yeah.
So people in our generation...
may not have heard Fleetwood Mac Rumors. We might not have heard it. Our parents heard it.
No, I definitely heard the Smashing Pumpkins version first.
Yes,
for sure.
As did I. The first version I heard was the Smashing Pumpkins, and then I got out my parents' Rumors record. I'm like, okay, that's the original. Well, I like the way the Smashing Pumpkins do it better. So.
I really do like Cherub Rock, and I did get to talk a little bit about his guitar talent in that, and the beat and the sound.
I used that song to get to expert on Guitar Hero. I know its guitar part really well.
Yeah.
Any other faves, Rachel?
So, last one I wanted to chat about was Perfect.
Oh, wow.
I think some of the lyrics out of that one were just really cool. He said stuff where I was just like, yeah.
For example?
The next time, I promise I will be perfect. There's just that commitment and how he has that longing for perfection, but he knows he can't reach it now, but he has the longing for the future.
Yeah.
Which gave me more hope and a little bit more light in him versus all the dark that I've been hearing.
Yeah. This is that particular song, really is pointedly about his divorce. And you do see in it, both a sadness, but
a hope all at the same time.
But a hope that perhaps. I really want this to be the case. I promise we'll be perfect.
Yeah. Did he ever get remarried?
No.
No. I guess he never reached perfection.
No, it's the case for most of us. So.
Before Rachel, you rate. I would like to hear from you, Father, briefly. What's their legacy in your mind? Because this is your favorite band, correct?
Yes, this is my favorite
Number
band.
one.
Number one of all time.
And you're a priest, so the Maltheism that you mentioned before doesn't seem quite to mesh. So my question is, first of all, what's their musical legacy for Rachel's sake? Who have they influenced, or what have they contributed? And then what personally draws you to this band?
Well, their legacy, I think, can be seen in such disparate acts, and I know it might sound like a stretch.
Rachel won't know the difference.
Okay. Well, maybe 21 Pilots.
Okay.
Maybe even Maroon 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't like Maroon 5. But I can hear some aspects of it in there. I'm just like, you guys were listening to the Smashing Pumpkins. Let's see here. I can definitely hear some of it in the Killers. I definitely hear some of the Pumpkins in the Killers.
So kind of like a broad influence from pop. And
Yeah, there are quite a few people, I think, performing in quite a few different genres who have really kind of taken a lead from the Smashing Pumpkins.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what about your personal... Because like we said, and Rachel picked up on it too, there's a lot of darkness here.
Yes, there is a lot of darkness.
And what attracts you to that?
Well, the fact that it all kind of ends in hope. That's kind of really where it is for me. Being a priest, people would ask, how can you like this? He says God is empty, just like me. He says Jesus was an only son for you. How can you, how can you get on board with this? And I think Billy Corgan, touches on some of those feelings that we as human beings have, those feelings of abandonment by everyone. Even by God.
David said it in the song.
Yes. Well, this is my point. Okay, what Billy Corgan is saying is nothing new. It's recorded in the Psalms. Okay, David, asking, how long will you forget me?
Or Christ saying, "Why have you?"
Yes, our Lord Jesus Christ Himself. My God, why have you forsaken me? Okay, and He's the God Man. So that's...
Those emotions are all within us as humans, but how Billy, I would say, delivers them in such a way, he brings them so personal, and then he brings it in with the musical instruments of, I guess, the part that I really liked with Smashing Pumpkins versus Nirvana, where the darkness is there too, where you could hear the beauty of the control, of the longing and the hope that even though there's darkness, even though there's crazy, I long for hope, I long for control, I long for something perfect.
Exactly.
And do you feel, Rachel, that you heard that
I heard
in
that
music, and that's what makes it different?
That's what was surprising for me, where I heard the heavy metal stuff.
That's okay.
But seeing that in each of the albums of his longing for perfection, and knowing that he can't have it here because what the world offers is not perfection, but he still longs for it.
Yes.
And that was a very interesting thing to see out of his lyrics, and even out of the instruments themselves. Because you could see that the instruments were saying those exact words.
Well, exactly. Music, says what words can't. And so, when we hear a beautiful piece of music and we find ourselves yearning for something, and we don't even know why.
Yeah.
You know, that's the power of music, and we see that in the music of the Smashing Pumpkins. And you see, well, in Billy Corgan's later work, at least lyrically, you see a lot of that hope come to fruition. You know, and so
that's encouraging.
So the Mouthieism days are totally behind him. He is at peace. And it's great.
So how old is he now?
He is 51, 52.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty normal working through all that stuff at that time period.
I would hope so. You can't stay an adolescent forever.
So Rachel, we've gone a lot of different places.
We have.
This episode. This is a long episode, man.
It is.
But we've hit
Thanks for listening, Stella.
We've hit a lot of stuff. But what we all really just want to know is, how are you going to rate this band on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being 0 and 10 being perfect.
Oh, wow.
Perfect.
I see what you did there with
Thanks,
that.
yeah.
I see what you did with that one.
So I was really surprised, and then plus hearing a little bit more today, I'm kind of even shocking myself. 8.5.
What?
I know.
Wait, really? That high?
Nice.
I'm really shocked.
Nice.
Like, I was shocked.
I am.
And especially with some of the lyrics where I'm like, ooh, he just totally said God isn't cool, and I am. So
as a God fan, I resent.
Like, ooh, I don't know, but how do I, but I could see him working through his heart, and that's really, I really like that invitation from him, that he showed his heart.
Absolutely.
I am floored.
I know, me too.
But pleasantly surprised. An episode full of surprises.
I know.
Father, thank you so much for joining us today and lending your expertise and your insight for the
Yeah.
Smashing Pumpkins.
This was a really fun episode. I know it was a long one, but I learned a lot, and I just had fun. So thank you.
Well, I'm happy to be of service. It's a great joy for me as well. It's not every day, someone sits me down just to talk to me about my favoriteest band in the whole wide world.
That's awesome.
And so it's marvelous. Thank you, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Audience, if you want to follow along with Rachel's journey, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can also rate and subscribe on iTunes and hear the Smashing Pumpkins playlist and all our playlists by going to Spotify and following us. You can find us by searching for Spotify, /user, music she missed. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Bye.
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 That second voice was not Rachel's.
Okie dokie.